pretty quickly that Judith was very good. When you combine it with things like Goblin Instigator, Legion Warboss, you could feel the strength of Judith, the Scourge Diva, right? That was the heart of the deck. The rest of the moving pieces around it, we're not quite there yet. I've been trying Experimental Frenzy. I've been trying Gruesome Menagerie. I've even just tried, like, none of that, just 4 Midnight Reaper, a bunch of Plague Crafters, and just all, basically, 36 creatures and 24 lands. I haven't figured out quite what the right shell is for Judith, but I think Judith is insanely good, and I'm very happy to brew with it.
Yeah, agreed. And you do have a Judith deck coming up later today. Todd will be playing a Marty Humans deck in the second matchup. But to start out, you're going to be playing something a little bit less surprising.
A little bit on brand.
On brand. There we go.
So my first deck of today is going to be my take on Izzet Drakes featuring this new standard format in Ravnica Legions. The card Terramander has been getting a little bit of a spotlight as of late because it's one of those cards where you see it for the first time and you think, well, that can go in a deck with a bunch of Ponders, Preordains, Brainstorms. Any deck that would normally be able to play Gurmag Angler can probably play Terramander. And if you, go even further than that and say, okay, well, now how do I fit it into a blue-based deck where I don't actually have to play Grixis? Because I think if the argument is, do I play Gurmag Angler or Terramander, I think it's always going to be Gurmag Angler, just because 1 mana, 5/5, and your entire graveyard is accessible versus a 2 mana 5/5 flyer. That's like arguing Gurmag Angler versus Tombstalker, and we already have that. Like, we already have a winner there.
Yes.
So
and Terramander is certainly worse than Tombstalker.
Right. And so I think the real question becomes, like, what deck would want a 1 mana 1/1 flyer, play all these instants and sorceries, and then later on transform it into something wonderful? And I think this Izzet Drakes deck that I built today is a deck that really finds a home for Terramander and pushes it to its limit, using it all outside things like Chart of Course. I would like to see it, even go further than that with things like Curious Obsession, but you need a lot more 1-drops, and that kind of moves away from the instants and sorceries path. So you have to find that right balance, and I think the Chart of Course is the card to do that.
Agreed. I think that synergy is really important. Having the 1-drop so you can chart on turn 2, draw 2 cards for 2 mana, really undercosted effect for standard, and something that is hard to unlock in the early game, but doing that on turn 2 really sets you up for what this Izzet deck wants to do, which is setting up these turns where you take a huge tempo swing by landing a big threat, usually one of your Drakes, then protecting it with really cheap spells, Spell Pierce, Dive Down, and you need to spend the early turn setting that up, and Chart of Course lets you do that. And Terramander also lets you do that by usually taking a removal spell out with it, or if they try to hold back and make sure they can deal with your Drakes, eventually it becomes a 5/5 itself, and that'll be good enough to close the game out, especially because it's usually pecked in for a few points in the beginning. So
yeah, I mean, if you're playing against a matchup where your opponent either doesn't have a lot of removal, you can use your first few turns, like play a Terramander, attack, maybe cast a Chart of Course, but use your couple of early turns to, like, shock stuff and Lava Coil things, and then as the game progresses and you just naturally play normal Magic, you get to a spot where you actually turn this 1/1 into a 5/5 for 1, 2, 3, sometimes even 4 mana. That's okay. On turn 4, if you can just spend 4 mana, turn this into a real threat and hit you for 5 because you've played like a bunch of, like a Discovery or just 4 instants and sorceries, like, that might just be good enough. We haven't really done a lot of exploring as far as, like, the strength of Terramander is concerned, but the play patterns with it so far from my side have all been great. Like, we saw a little bit of it in the Teamer Drake, or no, the Teamer Timbo deck that we played on Tuesday, and there was a game where I just went, like, Enigma Drake, Terramander on turn 4, and then turn 5 I, like, got to shock something, play an Opt, and transform Terramander, and hit you for 9, and put you on a 2-turn clock, basically. And that the fact that it can play that dual role of early threat that turns on Chart of Course, but also later game turns into a real monster, I think is really, really interesting.
Yeah, and it really lets you turn the corner, which is what these Izzet decks are trying to do. On my side, I would say the beating heart of this deck is Dovin Grand Arbiter, a card that was sort of polarizing when initially revealed. A lot of people's reaction, mine included, were pretty underwhelmed. And then a few people came out and really in strong support of that card. Emma Handy comes to mind, tweeted about it with a glowing review.
Yep.
And over the time that I've seen people play with it and played with it a bit myself, it's definitely a card that's risen a lot in my evaluation. Just how quickly you're able to ramp up towards an ultimate, even if you start with a -1 or 2. by making a couple Thopters, which is what you really want to do because that's the more powerful of the first two abilities. But it still gets to ultimate quickly even if you do that because of just how powerful the +1 is in generating extra loyalty. And so I'm playing in a Azorius sort of Planeswalker heavy mid-range deck. We got Karns, we have Tezzeret's instead of Teferi, trying that out to go with the artifact themed treasure maps. We have Authority. What's the
Ward?
the flat? No, the other one.
Depose Deploy.
Depose Deploy. There we go. To create more Thopters. So we're gonna create this army in the air that's hard to answer with traditional spot removal. Hopefully use our removal to keep Todd's threats at bay and go a little bit longer and generate a lot of value with the Planeswalkers. And then a little odd one, Sailor of Means in my main deck. This is a card that Jeskai decks were using towards the end of the season. Good with Treasure Map because once you have a Treasure Cove on the battlefield, you'll be able to turn the Sailor of Means into just a cantrip.
Yep.
The 1/4 is usually good against most aggressive decks, won't be good here. So I'm not expecting much out of Sailor of Means except for maybe just acceleration. I can land a Tezzeret a turn early under Todd's counterwall while he's setting up. It would be very nice, but I am certainly the control deck here, and Spell Pierce is going to be a problem.
Yeah. I think it's important to note that this Izzet Drakes deck is going to shine in matchups where cards like Spell Pierce and Dive Down are good, and Game 1 is going to struggle in matchups where those cards are bad. If I play against a deck that's like tokens or just goes super wide and doesn't try to actually kill my creatures or play a bunch of instants and sorceries, I have a very good chance of just getting absolutely run over. And then comes in the strength of the sideboard transformation plan that we talked about on Tuesday with the Temur Tempo deck. This deck has the access to the same thing, and you're going to see it maybe today. No, probably not because the Spell Pierce and Dive Downs are pretty good in this matchup. But in general, like, if I need to, I can go Treasure Map, Niv Mizzet, Fiery Candidate. That's like plan B, very easily transform into that. And you know, I'm really happy with this Izzet deck that can just come at you from multiple angles. Between main deck and sideboard. It's just a really flexible archetype, which I like.
Yeah, love it. So let's get to the games.
Well, let's get to some questions.
We got Robert here.
Well, so far it's just been a lot of suggestions about decks.
No.
And what we're playing later. Somebody asked about Hero Precinct 1, but I figured we'd get to that in
our
second match.
That's the second match, yeah.
Yep. So you're going to want to stay around for that one.
All right, well, let's go and roll dice then. You call odd or even.
I'll take odds.
All right.
You're up.
Nice. If you have any questions that are not just deck suggestions for us to play with, you can send those questions at SCG Tour in the Twitch chat, and Rob will pick his favorite. My hand is pretty good. I'm going to keep.
And my hand is also pretty good. So I'm also going to keep.
All right. Well, we get to see it out of the gates and see how it is.
Okay, I'm going to start with a tapped Hallowed Fountain. Pass the turn.
All right. I think I want to use my mana efficiently here. I could cast another Terramander, but I would basically lose out on a whole mana. Helm leading with Hallowed Fountain means I don't want this Lava Coil, but I will take this other card, and then I'll attack for one.
I'm at 19.
Your turn.
Todd, Histeus wants to know what was your favorite deck you played yesterday on the Arena stream?
Well, once I fixed my Temur Reclamation deck, I loved it. But I timed out with a 36-point explosion that I was about to cast, and my turn ended, and then I accidentally discarded my explosion because I was trying to click it quickly, and then it just discarded it. And so I got so mad that I quit. But that is my favorite deck. Other than that, I really like this Izzet Drakes.
Shocking to 18.
Yeah, I'm at 18. I hit you to 18 as well.
Okay.
Your turn.
No need to scry on upkeep there. We can make our land drop and just gives us more information to make the decision. So I'll just play land and pass.
All right. Draw.
Also, kind of off that last question, Todd, Opta 2056. Did you see anything that you played that looked really interesting and you were surprised at how good it looked?
1 second. Dive down on this Enigma Drake. So we're going to hit you for 4.
Yep. I wonder if I'm supposed to wait until after damage and warrant during the end of combat step, just to like not take an extra point against a dive down.
All right, you're at 14.
Or Spell Pierce.
All right, so yesterday in the streamer event, I played against like quite a few decks, right? I played probably 30 games or so. And the decks that really impressed me the most were Let's see. I don't know. I really like the Teamer Ramp deck that I'm playing today. The thing is, like, I actually just picked a bunch of the decks I'm playing, or 2 of the 3 decks I'm playing today.
That is good.
I picked 2 of those 3 decks because I thought that they were really good. This Izzet Drakes deck featuring Terramander, the Teamer Ramp deck, and then I played a lot of Reclamation lately, so I just didn't want to just keep doing that. Hit you for 6, you're 8.
Yep.
Go. I mean, you watched the stream, man. I commented on it pretty much. You can go check out my VOD if you want. I can't recall anything offhand, but
Slaytime 101 with a tier 1 sub. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Well, I can't beat a shock or land plus lava coil, but I've got this and make a Thopter to block.
You can't beat land plus lava coil? Is that my hand? All right, well, we'll lava coil the token, and that makes this ability cost 4. And then we'll hit you for 10. And that's the power of Terramander. Got in some chip damage early. It only cost 1. He was only able to use 1 removal spell on Enigma Drake.
Jesus.
And then he died to
So many
Terramander.
lands.
Well, you had treasure map. Use it more. I don't know. I mean, I guess you really can't use it more because of the pressure I was putting on you, but that's the whole thing. That's my deck. That's my whole deck.
It just gets to 5/5 so fast.
It does. It does get to 5/5 a lot faster than you would think. It's kind of like a suspend 5/5 haste flyer sometimes, you know? Like turn 1, you play it.
What was the comment from Time Spiral? Errant Ephemeron?
Yeah. No, actually, no, that's a really good comparison. It's more.
Did you pull that one up, Rob? Did you have that one?
No,
Did you have Errant Ephemeron at the ready?
Yeah. You know, every week Rob gets caught unprepared.
Yeah.
So you'd think you'd know which card we're going to bring up. We're playing with Terramander, so of course we bring up Errant Ephemeron. What? Come on. It's only logical.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I don't know what to do here. I'm sick, and I'm sick. My head is all cloudy. I don't really know what to talk about or do.
We do have some questions.
Okay,
Let's
hit
take
us.
some questions
All right.
before we go.
I don't.
sideboarding.
You know, we
Caterber
played 2 minutes of
listeners,
Magic.
Seems like there's a lot of tension between throwing away lands to jumpstart versus saving them for mass manipulation or for Terramander. How have you dealt with that, Todd?
Well, I think after sideboard, the jumps we don't have any jumpstart cards in our deck, really, right? What are you talking about?
Oh, I guess this is more of a general question as well.
Oh, if it's a general question, that's fine. But I actually have that card in my sideboard, so I was like, huh. No, so after sideboard, the mass manipulation is more for matchups where you know you're going to go super long. You're going to like be wanting Nimazet and Treasure Map, and then you have this like very versatile sorcery spell that can steal a Teferi, right? You know, steal a target.
Oh, they meant Chart, of course.
Oh, sure. Well, Chart, of course, is you know, you can choose it to discard lands early on. I think a lot of times after sideboard, if you're bringing in mass manipulation, you're going to be using Chart of Course as a draw to. Like, you're going to get 1 chip damage in here with a Terramander or an Enigma Drake for like an attack for 2 or 3, and then you're going to cast Chart of Course. And like, I don't think that these 6-drops like are affected by you wanting to discard lands, because after sideboard, your entire game plan changes. If you're going to be bringing in mass manipulation and Niv Mizzet, you're going to actually put a priority on hitting your land drops instead of just like trying to loot extras away.
Yeah. So that's just something that you get around by playing with some awareness of how you sideboarded and changing your tactics appropriately.
Right, and then you actually get to the point where, unless you really need to, you actually just stop just casting Chart of Course on turn 2. Like, you wait to where you can draw 2 cards off of it, or you wait until you have like after sideboard, you know, maybe you leave in 2 shocks or something so that if they play Teferi minus, you can still shock it. But if you draw 1 or 2 in your opening hand, like, just discard it. It doesn't do anything against Teferi deck. You know, it's not good. Anyway.
Full Metal Turtle. Let's see. Most decks last standard were 2-color. Do you think the same will hold true after this set? I would think 3-color would be ideal, but now more shocks come at a price.
So if you take your cue from the previous Ravnica era standard formats, both of RTR standard, at least before Theros, was dominated by mostly 3-color decks and then the more aggressive decks. Original Ravnica era standard had a good number of 3-color decks as well, but also a good number of 2s. Here we have mana that's more similar to RTR, but And so I agreed with you. I thought 3-color decks would be the norm, but in actually playing with the cards and working with them in practice, the guilds are so well defined, and there's not a ton of overlap between them to the point where I don't think they actually work well together to where you really want to match a lot of guilds together to have a real true 3-color deck. I think you're going to see a lot of 2-color with a splash kind of decks. The way like my Bant deck was built for Tuesday, that was really a Selesnya deck splashing 2 blue cards and then negates on the sideboard. That kind of thing I think will be the most common. But the identity of the decks and the beating heart, the core of them, is going to be based off of a single guild.
You get it now.
Yeah, no, I'm using the metaphor.
Yeah, dude, I love it. I think that what Ross said is pretty on point. You're gonna see a lot of 2-color decks that effectively splash for something that archetype is lacking. When you start to get into hard 3-color decks, you're gonna see, like, early on, I bet you'll see 100% an Esper control deck featuring Kaya's Wrath alongside Absorb, and you're gonna see that person like get really, really frustrated at some point because they don't have double black on turn 4 for Kaya's Wrath, or they don't have double blue for Absorb on turn 3.
Yeah.
And then they're gonna realize, I messed up. This is not easy. And then they're also going to have some games against Mono Red where they go, Shockland, Fungal Infection your thing, Shockland, Syncopate your thing. And then they're already at 16 and then Shockland. Like, it hurts. It hurts us.
So I would not be surprised to see, instead of a lot of the guilds meshing, to just see a lot of sort of new decks joining the old and shifting the metagame as a result.
I would love it. I would love it if the top 8 of the Pro Tour was literally just 8 different 2-color decks that were all guild centered or whatever. Like, that would be so cool.
That would be an impressive achievement for the design and development teams for these 2 sets.
Yeah. Guilds that probably won't make it.
Dimir.
Not gonna make it.
Yeah, that one's not up there.
The other one that's not gonna make it, Simic, I think. Because I think Gruul is just a little bit better because of Rhythm of the Wild.
Simic never makes it.
It's fine. I think Simic with another color.
Yeah, see, like, I took the Selesnya deck and splashed the 2 blue cards I wanted, Hydra Crisis and Adonis Climb. Those are 2 really good Simic cards.
Yeah,
but
they're also very easily splashable, which is unfortunate.
As far as a Simic-centric guild,
Frilled Mystic is not it. I don't think it's bad, but it is.
It's not it.
I talked to Chief.
yeah.
He told ain't it.
Ain't it.
All right, we're gonna take a quick break here while we do sideboards, and we're gonna come back for game 2 between Izzet Drakes, or what are we calling it?
Izzet Tempo.
Izzet Tempo and Ross's
Midrange.
Azorius Midrange deck.
And welcome back to Sideboarding here on Versus Live with Azorius Midrange versus Izzet Tempo. On my side, I am cutting some of the wonkier cards in the deck because they do not function very well in this matchup. Sailor of Means is meant to be an early blocker to protect your planeswalkers. That has some synergy with Treasure Map and synergy with Karn. It does not do very much blocking in a matchup where your opponent is playing nothing but flying creatures. And without blocking, this card just isn't going to be good. So it comes out. The Oath of Teferi was kind of a fun of in my deck with 3 different kinds of planeswalkers. And I was hoping to have a little fun with it. Didn't really play out that way. It's not going to play out that way in this matchup because I'm under so much pressure. So I'm also cutting that. And we're bringing in 5 creatures. And I think this kind of swap is going to be really good in a deck like this because when you present to your opponent a bunch of planeswalkers in game 1 and Sailor of Means, they automatically look at their removal and say, these cards suck. And they want to bring them all out or cut really low on them. And you bring in a lot of high impact creatures and take them by surprise. It's something that we've seen happen a lot over the last 2 years in Standard. And both of these creatures are super high impact. Deputy of Detention is just a better detention sphere if it sticks around. And then Lyra Dawnbringer not only matches up well against all of Todd's threats, it's also difficult for most red decks to remove. He's got a couple copies of Fight with Fire, and that's about it. And if Lyra Dawnbringer sticks and stays around, it'll dominate the game, even against Enigma Drake and Crackling Drake and Terramander.
Yeah, I think my easiest way to contain Lyra Dawnbringer is just having enough pressure on Ross where he's forced to block a Crackling Drake or Enigma Drake, and then I have Dive Down at the right spot when he's tapped out. So that's definitely a thing I'm going to have to keep in the back of my head while we're playing in the early turns of the game. Deputy of Detention could be really problematic for me because I'm boarding out Lava Coil, so I have to be very cognizant of how I sequence my threats and make sure that I don't play too many of them out. But also I need to play around Ixalan's Binding, so that's the part where I think Ross is really going to get a leg up on me.
Okay.
All right, as far as how I'm going to sideboard, negates are obviously good against decks with a lot of planeswalkers. I would say 80+% of Ross's spells are non-creatures, so I think Negate's going to be an all-star. Nim Izzet, Fight with Fire. These are cards that I think are just generically good if the game goes late. And Mass Manipulation for 6 mana, I think I'm just going to absolutely wreck Ross if I ever draw it. If I was siding in a tournament in this particular matchup, I think I would actually side out Terramander and board in Treasure Map and maybe Mesmeric Benthid. But because this is a new card and we just want to kind of see how it plays out, I'm going to leave it in for now and not bring in the Treasure Maps. Normally Treasure Map and Niv come in, but together. But we've seen various builds of this deck in the past that played Niv main and not Treasure Map, so I think it'll be fine.
Yeah. Turns out Niv Miz is powerful enough card to stand on its own.
Yeah. And the games usually just go long enough that it has an impact at some point that's usually pretty good.
Yeah.
All right, so here's kind of a fun question from B-Rax BSN. What's the best curve you ever had in a match of Magic?
I mean, I've turned 1 to people, so.
That's not a curve.
Best curve. I've been playing for so long, I can't remember.
All right, turn 1, Noble Hierarch. Turn 2, Knight of the Reliquary. Turn 3, Wasteland You, Knight of the Reliquary, Wasteland You, Scrib Ranger, Wasteland You. I know you've done that before. That's a pretty good curve.
How do you know? I don't know.
Because you played Maverick. Of course you've done it. Everyone who plays Maverick has done that.
I did play Maverick for a long time.
Yeah, I know. Me too.
Okay. I don't best curve. I have a good one, but it's only good because of what my opponent did. I was playing Legacy Elves. My opponent was playing Metalworker. They were on the play, and they went turn 1, Chalice of the Void for 1 off of an Ancient Tomb.
Nice.
So I went fetch land, go. Their next turn was another land and then a Trinisphere.
Nice.
So I played fetch land, go. I guess they played a Grim Monolith into Trinisphere. The following turn, they just played Trinisphere. The following turn, they just played a Grim Monolith. They didn't have another land drop. So I spent their end step cracking both my fetch lands and finding 2 Dryad Arbors. Untapped on my turn 3, played another land, and I played Elvish Visionary for 3 mana. Drew card. Opponent untaps and plays Kuldotha Forgemaster. I'm definitely dead if they get to untap that card. They did not untap. They untapped without it in play. Because I untapped on my 4th turn, I played Gaia's Cradle. I tapped my other 3 lands for a Green Sun Zenith for 1 for 3 mana. Found a Quirion Ranger. Then tapped my Gaia's Cradle for 4 mana. Sacrificed a Dryad Arbor for Natural Order. Returned my other forest to untap the other Dryad Arbor. And attacked them with 2 5/5s and a 9/9 when they were at 16 because they had tapped their Ancient Tomb twice. So they had a chump block with their Forge Master, drew their card, and conceded.
It's a good story. You could have sped that up like a bunch.
Nope.
Leave me alone.
Had to build drama, Todd.
Okay. Well, let's build drama for the current game of Magic we're playing.
Okay. Well, how good is your hand?
Just squishing you to death really quickly.
I have a pretty good hand.
Okay, mine's okay. It's not very aggressive though, so
I'll play an island and pass.
It's not like we sided out creatures. Go.
So Todd, question from J.R.H. White. I noticed that the Murmuring Mystic was omitted from the Drake's deck.
Pass.
Do you think there's still a place for Mystic in the 75 going forward, especially with the prevalence of aggressive decks early in new formats?
I'm thinking about this card. I think Merriam Mystic is very good. It's not in this version because we're just a little lower to the ground with Terramander, and we couldn't really find room for it. Obviously, something like Adonto's Vanguard could still be problematic, and this is, of course, a rough draft, and it's pretty common whenever a new set comes out that people just kind of forget some of the things we learned in the previous format, and one of which is that Adonto Vanguard is very good against Izzet and Jeskai. Crap. So, there's a good chance that it comes back, and there's two of them in my sideboard if I play this at the Open next week, so... It's, it is a bit of an omission as opposed to a conscious effort to say it's not good. I have a Niv, but only 4 mana. What should I do? This card's just so good, right? It's just so good. You can't beat it if I have that plus dive down, right? All right.
Okay. Well, I was hoping Todd would tap out there for a discovery or a whatchama something. You know the name of the thing.
Yeah, discovery or chart, of course.
Yeah, but he didn't.
You gonna play that? You gonna play your Dovin Bond?
Treasure map.
Hmm.
I didn't treasure map on turn 2.
What? What are you so upset about?
Could have mapped on 2
Oh.
and not gotten it negated, but I wanted to play around Spell Pierce, figuring that you would have a 2-mana sorcery.
Oh, that sucks, dude. I'm sorry. Go.
Instead, you didn't.
Grumble, grumble, grumble.
This is not a combo. I'm gonna shock and tribunal this thing.
Okay.
I'm at 18.
18 to 20.
You can go.
Go.
Pass the turn. Really needed that treasure map.
Terramander.
Yep.
Go.
Karn.
It resolves.
Plus.
Yeah. You can have. Oh, you missed a land drop, right? Or you haven't played.
I have not played a land this turn.
You can have Warrant Warden.
Pass. Todd's so smart.
You know what makes me smarter? I'm gonna steal your Karn. That's my Karn. Now go 7. My
You can have
Karn.
A discovery.
Thank you for 1.
17.
Go. Wait, no, this chart is exiled.
Oh, yeah.
That matters quite a bit for Terramander.
I will deputy of detention my Karn.
Okay. All right. So now that deputy of detention is never dying.
Pass.
Rats. All right. So I can do this. Let's go this.
Sure.
Ross, question from Dr. Idiot. What are your thoughts on Ixalan's Binding? You're playing 1 in this deck, but is there any thought to playing more?
I wanted to sort of diversify my removal in case of, like, just to give myself more options with Dovin Bond's ultimate. So I split Tribunal and Binding, and maybe you want more of those effects, but they're pretty expensive, and you already have Cleansing Novas and Warrant Warden as additional removal. So you don't want too many of those enchantments, but I could see Binding just being better than Tribunal. You also make a bunch of Thopters, so slowing it down is nice.
Does it probably matter how much Niv-Mizzet you plan on seeing?
Yeah, that is certainly a consideration. Is that attack running to 16 or?
Yes. Sorry. 2016. Excuse me. I'm dying. Stole your Karn.
How big is that Enigma Drake?
5/4 flying.
Pass.
So now you have a Warrant Warden. Attack. Dive down. Here's a question. Do I care? Kind of. A lot of damage I'm just missing out on. Alright, dive down. And then, so this is 7. Pump. Or do I pump this up or do I just play Crackling Drake? Into, like, if he just goes untap Wrath, that's like pretty bad for me, I guess. Alright, whatever. You take 12, you're at 4. And then I have a Crackling Drake and a Niv-Mizzet, so I'm just going to play a Terramander. Go.
Thank you for 1.
Yeah, I'm at 19.
Cleansing Nova.
Yep.
Now I get my Karn back, so that was cool.
Yep.
This has a thing under it. I am just going to minus and get this land drop.
Okay. guess this just has the highest upside, so go. It's possible that he has counter spells, but we've already used all of our dive downs, basically, so.
I didn't really think about that, and now I'm sad. I think I should have plussed looking for a blue source because I didn't realize that I would just have 4 planes.
Oh, classic.
I just can't cast this card.
That's maybe don't put manipulation in your deck if you're super heavy the other color that's not blue.
It's a pretty evenly split. It's a one of. I've got treasures.
Yeah.
Figured it'd be fine.
Yeah.
How could it go wrong?
Okay. What do I give you? You can have another card. I'm guessing he can't kill this Niv because he's like really tanking on what to do this turn.
Yeah, I thought I was like, I'll just Cleansing Nova, and I'll final land 6, and I'll take his Niv Visit, and everything can be fine. That's great. I can't cast this card. It costs.
It's not even 3 blue and 3.
If this
it's 4 blue. You were 2 blue short. You weren't 1 blue. You were 2 blue short.
Can this just be in Bolus's clutches?
Actually, whenever people start talking about that card, I said I thought it might actually just be worse than Bolus's clutches.
Yeah.
Bolus's clutches can steal any permanent, right? And that only steals planeswalkers and like obviously if you get to like 8 mana or whatever, it's busto.
If I could just in Bolus's clutches this, I would win the game on the spot. It can't be over.
Whenever Niv Mizzet got really popular, I thought Bolus's clutches was a great sideboard card, but unfortunately, well, okay.
Go.
All right, I'll deal 1 to you.
Oh no! Oh god, I'm at 4.
No, you're
3
already
now?
at 4. Yeah, you're at 3. All right, I will cast the card Opt.
Oh no!
I'll put you to 2. Top card is a Charted Course. I'm going to keep that one, and then I'm going to kill you. That was a sweet game.
Oh, the best laid plans of mice and men.
All right, I think we probably have time for a game 3 if that's something you might be interested in, Ross. I don't know.
I am not at all. 0. I have about as much interest in a game 3 of that match as I do in a slice of Chicago-style pizza.
Wow, you're really just going to go there? You're just going to alienate half of the freaking audience or whatever?
There's only like 4 million people in Chicago.
Great. Okay. All right, I guess let's field some questions. Is that something we can do?
Yeah, we've got some here.
All right.
John Luke 92 wanted to know, what do you think about Dovin in a control shell, specifically in Jeskai?
I don't really know what it's doing. I think Dovin might be a really good card in the slot that people have been playing History of Benalia in. The sideboard of a control deck.
Yep.
Bring this cheap thread and control mirrors so you can get under them and force them to act first. I think that's where Dovin is going to be in a control deck, and I think it's really good at that.
No, I definitely agree.
You just go down, you tick down, and then you tick up, get it to 4, then you tick up, get it to 7, and it ultimates on turn 5 of it in play. So I think that's where it's going to be played in a control deck. I think it's powerful enough to be in part of the core of a deck, but I don't know what to put around it. I think the Flash deck I played a couple weeks ago was pretty good. Maybe something like that.
I mean, the problem is that it's like with that Depose Deploy, even the newish Tezzeret, like you're incentivized to play this like Thopter, kind of synergy type thing, but like you don't have enough stuff.
Yeah, there's just not enough pieces.
Yeah, I mean, there's no like Pia and Kieran Nalar. There's not even like a Whirler Rogue, like nothing like that really kind of hammers home the token generating type stuff from Azorius. So I don't know, maybe it needs like another artifact based block. I don't know why I said that. That's like
nobody needs that.
Nobody needs that. No one needs that.
Don't.
I don't know. Next question.
We for Humanity was asking about what about playing an Orzhov control deck that splashes for very light blue splash and like cards like Teferi or Syncopates, like single blue instead of trying to go for the counter spells.
I mean, I think that is certainly a viable option. The problem is, so the Izzet decks, or not Izzet, the Jeskai decks actually kind of were doing that for a little while in the previous standard season, where they were, instead of Sinister Sabotage, they were playing Ionize. And so they were able to get away with that light blue splash because they didn't have Hallowed Fountain, because Teferi was 1 blue, because Ionize was 1 blue. But I don't think that Esper can do that because they don't have that same counterspell. If I'm mistaken, unless I'm mistaken,
No.
I can't think of one off the top of my head. Like there's no soul manipulation or anything like that. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there are builds, and if you don't want to play counterspells at all, I think that's certainly fine. Teferi is very easy to splash, and as long as you can utilize that 2 mana that you get when you untap with it, whether you're playing 2 mana removal spell or like sideboard negates or even some index negates, is probably okay. Could be pretty
You
good.
can still play Warden pretty easily in that kind of deck as well as a
Yep.
2 mana removal spell to play off of it.
As long as you don't have a lot of basic swamps, I think it's very easy to cast.
Yeah. So that is a way to go. That version of that kind of deck, though, is going to be very bad against any control deck with counter spells in it. So you have to be very wary of matchups like that,
right?
And come prepared in your sideboard to take games 2 and 3 because your game 1 is really rough.
No, I agree with that.
All right, then we have 2 here that kind of go together from Mackie 2 and Dr. Idiot. The first one is Gruul good enough for only 2 colors? And then the second part of that was, would a possible teamer deck with Rhythm of the Wild and Zagana be something you would look at?
I mean, if you want to take me out to dinner, that's fine. We can talk about this. This is right up my alley. I think Rhythm of the Wild is just a mess of Magic card. I think a lot of the Simic cards that have triggers whenever you put a counter on it, or just get significantly better when they have a counter on it, all pair super good with Rhythm of the Wild. I think Domri doing the same thing with the plus mana, as well as being able to dig for stuff. I know Andrew Cuneo was working with the Birthing Pod
Prime Speaker
Vanifar version that had both Rhythm of the Wild and Domri to give it haste, so you could activate it immediately upon casting it. It looked really cool. So I don't know if you want to ask him on social media if he has his list available. He was streaming. I believe he was part of the streamer Ravnica Legion's kind of celebration thing we were doing yesterday. So it looked really interesting. So if that's something you're into, I mean, as far as having to splash, probably not. You don't have to. Do you gain a lot of really cool interactions when you do? Yes. Giving things haste that are Simic or 3 colors. Yes. Very cool. Very good.
The problem with splashing in a deck like that, though, is that those decks are very curve sensitive when you're playing things like Rhythm of the Wild and Prime Speaker Vanifar. And splashing is going to hurt your curve or make you take a lot of damage to keep on curve. I do think Gruul is strong enough to stand on its own, though I think most of the builds people have of Gruul decks are pretty bad, to be honest. They're either way too low to the ground and trying to be this like aggressive deck, or they are split between being an aggressive deck but their curve is going too high to do that effectively. I think if you're going to play a Gruul deck, you should build it like the old Gruul Monsters deck or John Monsters deck from several years ago, where you have your 2 mana creatures, Llanowar Elves, and Incubation Druid. You have a supplementary 2-drop that is good into the late game in Growth Chamber Guardian, and you get your curve up to 5 so that you can go Accelerant into 5-drop, and we have a dragon just like Stormbreath. Skargan Hellkite has seen very little hype for some reason. I think people just think it's worse than Glorybringer or Stormbreath or Thundermaw Hellkite. I don't know if you were around when basically any of those cards after Thundermaw were previewed, but they all said, like, oh, it's kind of worse than Thundermaw Hellkite, and they just all saw play and were really good. Yeah. Skargan Hellkite is really good. You can make it a 5/5 and dodge Lava Coil. You can make it a 4/4 haste to kill a Planeswalker. If you make it a 5/5, it's a great mana sink, which those sort of decks with mana creatures and 24 lands need. The one thing I will say about Gruul is that if you're building it like a Monsters deck, I don't think Gruul Spellbreaker belongs. I think Spellbreaker is more of a red card that you splash green in and is in a very aggressive deck, low to the ground. I don't think it belongs in a Monster-style deck. I think you'd rather have something that gets a little bit more value. I think Thrashing Brontodon is a reasonable choice. I think Deathgorge Scavenger is going to be really good in this format because there's a lot of graveyard interactions, and that deck needs life gain against aggressive decks. And Deathgorge Scavenger is really good when you give it Riot, so you can have haste and trigger twice in one turn, really turn races around. So I think you want to be looking towards things like that as opposed to Gruul Spellbreaker because it doesn't really fit in the style of deck that Gruul is going to be best at.
I mean, I will agree to an extent. I think that the fact that you can have a 3/3 haste that protects you from Settle the Wreckage and has Hexproof while it's attacking is a really solid addition to like a pretty aggressive red-based deck. But I think that it actually just breaks that mold. I think it's just actually good enough as the 3-drop in basically any deck that plays green and red. Protecting you from Settle the Wreckage when you're a creature-based strategy is important. Like it has a lot of value just in that, and it's way better than that. It's really hard for your opponent to hit with something like Warden, and I don't know. When you have Rhythm of the Wild, it just gets like sizably, or it gets out of range of Lava Coil. Like there's just a lot of little things that I think that we're missing. So,
okay, well, that's our thoughts on Gruul. Let's take one more, and then we'll head to break.
The Scarab 463. Did you give any thoughts to the mono blue tempo deck splashing Dovin?
Here's the thing.
Can I take it?
Yeah, sure.
Please. Okay.
I think we're going to say the same thing.
Yeah, you can't play Temesgen. And if you're not going to play Temesgen, you shouldn't play the deck. There could be a different version of the deck. That's certainly a possibility. I don't think Dovin is even remotely close to as good as Temesgen, especially in that deck, because you can't protect it with Dive Down. Namely, the fact that you can play this 3-mana, 3/4 flyer that gets bigger every turn, and you can protect it with Dive Down, makes it the perfect late-game threat for that deck. Dovin Bond doesn't really do enough for the deck, so no. Yeah.
What he said.
I'm so smart. Anywho, we're going to take a short break here while we prepare for the second match. I'm going to get a drink of water and take some more Dayquil because I am feeling like poop. But we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.